Welcome everybody on this very cold and snowy, rainy day here in the Washington, D.C. area. I am Henry Crawford and welcome to Poets versus the Pandemic, a series devoted to poets whose books have come out during this time of coronavirus and sheltering in place. This is our last PvP program of the year, and so I want to thank all of the poets who have appeared on the program and people who have come on to help brighten our lives during this pandemic. I think it was a real bright spot in an otherwise dark year. So tonight, we're featuring Betsy Holleman Burke, who will be reading from her new book, All That Remains. We'll also be hearing guest poets, Donna Denise and Miss Cayenne. So this should be a great show. Before we begin, I want to thank the WordWorks and Cafe Muse for helping sponsor this series. And I want to thank every one of you here for joining us tonight. Okay, let's get started. First and most importantly, if you want to purchase the poets' books, I've put a link in the chat. Well, I haven't done that yet, but I will put a link into the chat that will take you to the places where you can purchase the books of each of the poets tonight. And I'll be putting it in from time to time so that new people who enter the meeting will also have a chance to see those links. We also have a donation button on that page, so don't feel shy about donating to our program. We at WordWorks and Cafe Muse will thank you wholeheartedly if you do so. And I'll also put into the chat a link where you can follow all of our WordWorks online readings. You can sign up on the registration form on that page, and you'll be on our mailing list to get Zoom links for all of our readings. Now, if you want to ask a question of our poets, please feel free to drop a question into the chat, and we'll try to get to as many of them as we have time. A couple more things. Please join us on Monday, January 4, 2021. When Cafe Muse Online will open our 2021 series with featured poets Don Colburn and Leslie Wheeler. And we'll be back here again on PvP on January 20, 2021 with our feature poet Anne Harding Woodward, who will be reading from her new book, Trouble. Okay, so now let me introduce Betsy Holleman Burke. Betsy, who's also a very good friend of mine, is the author of All That Remains, published by WordTech Communications in 2020. She was born and raised in Knoxville, Tennessee, and All That Remains centers on the destruction of the family home by new owners. Betsy's first collection, Searching for Hummingbirds, was published in 2014, and besides being a passionate poet, Betsy is a floral designer at the Washington National Cathedral and Hillwood Museum. So let's give a warm PvP welcome to Betsy Holleman Burke. Betsy, take it away.
Thank you so much, Henry. And thank you all for coming tonight. The good news of COVID is that you didn't have to go out in the snow. There'll probably be 3 people sitting here looking at us. I actually went so far as to put on a red dress because I haven't gone to any Christmas parties, and a little perfume, as I pointed out to Donna and Miss Cayenne. So this is really going to be fun to read with Donna, my old friend from long ago, and Miss Cayenne, who I've just met and will look forward to knowing more about. I really want to thank Henry for doing this. He is, we've been working together in the Surrey Street Poets for 10 years now, and he was the person, I will have to confess, who formatted my poetry book. And I couldn't have done it without you, Henry. Thank you. And he is quite the man about town and keeping all this online poetry world alive, and that is really something to be grateful for. Just a few shout outs before we begin. I want to thank David Keplinger, who has been my teacher and my mentor for these long 10 years. And then our Surrey Street group, we are just a wonderfully supportive team, and they have made such a world of difference to me. Also to Ruthie Windsorman, who painted the cover of the book of the rusted go-kart, which was all that was remaining on the property. Sarah Hood Solomon, who took my cover photo. And also have to thank my children and my husband who are online looking at me for all their support. Thank you all. And so now, All That Remains. The book was born when I visited the overgrown site of my former home. We lived in that house for over 65 years, 5 generations. Loved it. It was on the Tennessee River and with the mountains in the background. It was just a funky old house, and that was just welcomed everyone. But like so many old houses after my parents died, first there was a recession, then there were development issues, and then there was neglect, and finally just terrible vandalism. It was vacant for over a decade. And I really think when a house is unloved and unlived in, it loses its soul. When it was demolished without warning, it just left a huge hole in my heart. So all that remains are memories. As Thomas Wolfe said, you can't go home again. So part 1 of this book is really about the house and snippets of memory, and it rambles around a bit. This is Copper. When both were gone, mice took over, scurried in the walls, under cabinets, became trapped in the high, slippery tub. The vandals helped themselves to a pedestal sink, cedar closets, wooden bar cabinets with glass panes, rusted air conditioners shoved from bedroom windows, stripped of copper parts to fatten the drain pipe hall. Plywood covers entry doors, living room windows, broken glass litters the ground, basement screens torn apart by someone running from the copperhead nesting in the laundry room. So it's a little scene here of domestic life. I had 3 younger brothers, and there were a lot of issues going on there, as you can imagine. And this is called Grandfather Clock. Shortly before we were all seated at this table, Birdseye Food had come out with frozen vegetables, which was just the thing for the mothers of the 50s. Grandfather Clock. It is important to ignore Birdseye directions. Do not offer frozen. Boil until soft. Smelly, hard Brussels sprout balls roll onto plates. Slip across floor. Fly over Formica table. Pummel Michael in his high chair. Chaos. Oldest of 4, take drastic action. Distract sitter, spit sprouts into napkin, hide in Grandfather Clock. Perfect for months. Compliments on Clean Plate Club. Good manners, my brothers should follow my example. Alas, clock stops striking. Mother opens the door, faints at the smell. Family gathers in hall, watches. Ruined linen napkins, soggy paper towels, lump after rotten lump emerges. My grandmother screams. In addition to being passionate about arranging flowers, I love to grow flowers. I've had a big garden earlier in my life, and I have a little one now, but my influences are really my mother, who was a fine gardener, and my grandmother, who was really spectacular. This one is called My Other Grandmother in Her Rose Garden, 1958. 1. New dawn roses tumble around the arbor. Blush pink flowers tangle themselves. Reach for morning sun. Perfume the air with sweetness. Mama Chris wears a print house dress, tattered straw hat, rimless glasses. She smiles at her world, designed one hybrid tea at a time. Plants stand in neat rows, labeled by date, Latin name, provenance. She rests on a shaded wicker bench, apple basket full of clippers by her side. 2. She snips her namesake rose, cream with a yellow edge, orange center. The skeletal leaves fall, covered with black spots. She shakes her head, studies the damage, knows the disease. Tiny green aphids crawl across her swollen knuckles. A mosquito whines in her ear. She mops her face with it. The sun is high, bent no longer in shade. Ruined leaves lie crumbled in her hands. Red welts cover her wrists. Her dress is soaked through. Unladylike, she knows. Maybe family stopped by, left without finding her. But no bang of the screen door. No one calling her name. The copper window screens are blank. A porch light is on. She will wait until sunset. Now, this is something that some of you in the audience may very well remember. There was a fabulous movie called The Ballad of Thunder Road. And I am not going to sing this song, but you might remember the words. When his engine roared, they called the highway Thunder Road, blazing right through Knoxville, out on Kingston Pike. Right outside of Bearden, they made the fatal strike. This is Robert Mitchum playing Lucas Doolin, who was a moonshiner extraordinaire. And they loved to use that road called Thunder Road, running up and down from the mountains with their moonshine to everywhere else in the South. Thunder Road, 1958. Growing up on Thunder Road, the movie arrived at the Knoxville Drive-In and stayed until winter. We watched over and over. I became a minor celebrity. I lived on that infamous street, in my pink bedroom with my storybook dolls. The wallpaper of my teenage life, the throbbing whine of a hot rod, the laconic call of a passing freight, an angry river by day, a steady, peaceful brook at night, never quiet, never still. Perhaps it was the blazing that hooked me, grabbed my dreams, infused me with energy. Outside my window, people were going places, fast to the university, cool parties, slow to First Baptist, bank meetings. A longing to be somewhere else was born, away from the pink bedroom, away from Thunder Road. So part two is me actually going away from my pink bedroom and Thunder Road. And one of the places that we went as a family and just really, really loved, I think it really informed all of us in our obsession with nature and being outside, and was living in this small house on the marsh. We really called it a support system for the view. And that's where we first met up with the hummingbirds. This is called Nocturnal. An orange quarter moon hangs low over the salt marsh. Pale fog rises. Dark noise intensifies on Kiowa. Tree frog serenade, radio static on high pitch. Tiny, hidden. They command twilight on Kiowa. Footsteps scamper across roofs. Raccoons nocturnal play. Crash of cans, a feast of cold crab shells on Kiowa. Night heron lament, clack of palm fronds, flap of wings. Hunter and hunted seek survival on Kiowa. Loud, guttural bellow, splash of water, slap of tail. Gator love active, prowling for mates on Kiowa. Slap of palm, sting of flesh, string of passionate curses. Mosquito buzz, most feared evening sound on Kiowa. Meld into this world, absorb sensations, my desire. Foiled by air conditioning racket on Kiowa. And as passionate as I am about the marsh and that island, I'm obsessed with the beach, and probably everybody else in the world is too. So whenever I go to the beach, I think of this poem, and I probably say it to myself because it really feels like a prayer to me. Little salt water. And this is called We Ask Too Much of the Ocean. Heal us, we beg. We walk the morning beach, city layers intact, wet sand beneath our feet. Inhale the salt air, the warm breath of sand. Scour our brains, remove old barnacles. Launder our sorrows, burnish us bright as sun diamonds. Heal us, we plead. We float, toes up, face to the sky, lifted on your gentle waves, enclosed in your amniotic fluid. Ears stopped with water, sound retreats, old voices stilled. No up, no down, safe in your caress, cleansed of thought, a small dot on an infinite expanse. Heal us, we beseech. We rest in warm sand, watch blue crabs scuttle from sandpipers, a trinity of pelicans dive for minnows, an egret fishes far from his marsh home. Children swoop, chase a flock of laughing gulls. A tide of sand dollars washes ashore, followed by a thick blanket of starfish. So in part 3, this is really all about loss. And I have been called a poet of lament. Anyway, after my husband passed away suddenly in 1999 on a business trip, none of us knew what to do. He was such a beloved, wonderful person. And so time passed and we knew a lot more, and we knew what people should do and what they shouldn't do. So this poem is called Do Not Say, My Thoughts and Prayers Are With You. Do not say, my thoughts and prayers are with you. Do not say it was God's plan. Do not say he is gone to a better place, to a higher calling. Do not say it was his time to go. Do not say it was a blessing, it was fast. Do not say, tell me if you need anything. Do not say, I know how you feel, I lost my golden retriever. Put your arms around me, let me cry and cry. Cry with me until there are no more tears. Come back tomorrow, cry again. Write to me, tell me about the fish he caught, the golf you endured, his practical jokes, his contagious laugh. Share your loss, what he meant to you. Fill my house with your laughter, with hydrangeas. Cook mussels and white wine for me. Make me eat them. Call again. Walk with me by the river. Do not forget me. Do not say, my thoughts and prayers are with you. Do not. Do not. So the last part of the book, I have taken a few of the poems from my first chapbook called Searching for Hummingbirds. When the hummingbird came to our house and stayed, we knew it was truly a miracle. It was something special. So this is called A Hummingbird at Your Wake. Like the child who misses the shooting star, I miss the flash in the lantana. My children's excited cries, in the wink of an eye, gone. Not possible. Hummingbirds were never here in Kenwood, only on our Kiowa Marsh. From a terrace chair, I watch myriad white butterflies in the flowering chives, oregano spilling over the stone wall. I try to smile, be gracious. Friends seek warm words, stories of your playful jokes, anything to cheer me up. I think of your hummingbird passion, see you filling feeders with red sugar water before you unpacked the hot car. Roaring your great laugh from the Polly's hammock as they fight for food, chase each other through the Spanish moss. You are besotted, I say, just like them, beautiful, elusive, needing the next sugar high, the next big case. If you want a heart that beats 100 times a minute, powerful enough to cross the Gulf of Mexico and return. And this is kind of a poem I wrote in the spring of 1999. And it's about my fisherman husband, and it's a lovely memory. And this is called Obscurity. A tumult of shad royals, the churning waters of the Potomac under Chain Bridge are slippery with rocks that catch him, fill his waders with cold, bang his hips, twist his ankle. Shivering, soaked, he presses on. He vies for space among a ragtag crowd, casts his line over and over. He fills the cooler with fish. The call comes from the boxy car from, "Hey babe, put on the bacon." Grease is ready for roe the minute he arrives, wet and rank, in need of a shower, joyful. A man who slips into the river on a glorious spring afternoon to secure an obscure dinner we cook together. Spring 1999. I have added one poem, and I wrote this last week with the Surrey Street Poets, and because we had a question about anything that ever come into your life, anything or person that really changed it dramatically. So I started thinking about, well, why has this hummingbird really changed me and made me a writer? So this is called Follow the Hummingbird. In Jamaica, a hummingbird lands on my finger, sips from a bottle. I hold my breath. Do not blink. Years later, he comes to my garden the day of the funeral, stays with me through summer into fall. A flash of green, red, hint of burnish at the kitchen window on the feeder, supping crimson sugar water. I long to write about him, describe his iridescent shimmer. His green body, red neck feathers sparkle like Mardi Gras sequins. He hovers vertically, feasts on gnats, a foot away from my head. The tiny bird teaches me to watch, follow him, celebrate nature's gifts. The ladybug in my eye, the double rainbow over Flathead, the monarch swathed in a web. Only poetry can capture him, exquisite, elegant in line, form, fast and spare, or slow and layered, a talent I did not possess. So my final poem this night, as you might imagine, is To the Hummingbird. Spring and summer, 18 long years, you were somewhere, watching, waiting. For a moment, you were needed. A flash, a splash, color and light, a reminder, a fuzzy skull. All was right, take heart. no tears. Were you a bird? Were you God? Were you Vernon? No matter, you were a gift. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Betsy. What a wonderful reading. And I think you've warmed a lot of hearts on this cold night here in DC. I thank you. And now let me introduce our first guest poet here, Donna Denizet. Donna holds degrees from Stonehill College and Howard University, where she was a student of the poet Robert Hayden. She is a contributor to scholarly books and journals, including the Shakespeare Set Free, published by the Folger Shakespeare Library. Donna is a teacher in the education department of the Folger Shakespeare Library, where she has conducted numerous workshops for students and teachers. She is the author of a poetry chapbook, The Lover's Voice, in 1997, and a collection of poems, Broken Like Job, published by the WordWorks in 2005. Her poems have appeared widely in a number of anthologies and journals such as Full Moon on K Street, Gargoyle, Innisfree Journal of Poetry, the Beltway Poetry Quarterly, and a host of others. So with all of that said, let's bring Donna to the PvP stage and have at it.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Henry. And thank you, Betsy, for that wonderful, wonderful reading. You reminded me how much I miss and love being in a room where words just embrace you and you can just really feel the energy, the warmth, and the beauty of them. And you had all of it tonight. So thank you so much. I love the Hummingbird. I just love the poems. So the first one that I want to read is called, most of them are from the book that was published by WordWorks, Broken Like Job. And then I would like to end with some newer ones that I think are still in the making. So I'll see what you think. Okay, I'm going to start with one called Luna, since Betsy talked about Jamaica. I was in Haiti. Denizet is a Haitian name. And I was visiting family, and I went out one night and I noticed just how bright the moon seemed. And I thought, how come I don't notice that so much when I'm in other parts in the United States? And so this poem came. Luna. On nights like this, some conjure images, pale horse, pale rider. On such nights as these, sweet Juliet apprises Romeo, swear not by the moon. And Kate complies to Petruchio, it is the sun, it is the blessed moon. Luna, mantle of rock, denser than crust 37 miles in thickness. One small iron core surrounded by molten zone, surface densely cratered. Mountainous highlands and large, circular, smooth-floored plains called Maria. But before men in metal helmets planted flags or spoke time-worn syllables, one small step for man, we were much closer to lunar music. Since then, few notice the milky softness of moon. Even lovers look to other signs for the blush of love, ever palpable now, altered by peering. But in Haiti, hearts touch moon. Light bends, broken and broken again on the sea. Nights open in the peeling of mangoes, and moon reigns wherever the magical touch remains, while astonished eyes wonder at this mystery, that so little should have taken us to the moon back then. The second one is it's like about teachers. I have several poems about teachers. And this is before I became a teacher. I was actually asked to write this poem about teaching. It's a funny story about Howard University, which I will not go into into depth, but I was asked to write this poem about teaching, and I hadn't been a teacher yet. So I decided to create this persona, which I'll read later. It's called Noon Signs. but I literally since then have written several poems about teachers. And this one is about a teacher at Howard University. You know, I went there from Cape Cod, where I was always, you know, one of few African Americans. And so I ran to Howard University thinking, you know, oh, good, I'll finally be like among numerous other people of color. And of course, the professor that I got was white. Okay, so I was like, what's going on here? That's not okay. Well, she turned out to be like one of the most important people in my life. And this is a poem that I wrote for her. It's called Primer, in memory of Doris Ray Adler. Hands, eyes, mouth, nose, teeth, smile. Knees, ankles, feet, walked. At 2, I learned my alphabet, my hands, my feet, my face, teeth, nose, eyes, on and on. I recited words out loud, then found the shape, matchings like socks. Each sound a mirror like pant legs, always 2 eyes, 2 hands, 2 lips. One mouth speaks and learns things as they exist. And my compact vocabulary built dictionaries I had to abandon, forget in another season, when bursts of the spirit teach the body things are not only as they exist. Symbol, simile, metaphor. I know now that I am born to lose my body. Only not memories shared with you, dearest comrade. Smiles evoked from heart's hidden stirrings move like leaves in wind. And if lucky, I learn we are born contingent, born to a new alphabet of knowing, ancient and sacred. I learn gardens whose blossoms are not here only, but blooming invocations to invisible becoming, unknowable being. And so this is all I am now. Poetry, spirit, prayer, my eyes, my hands, mouth. Clothed by your love, I walk back into Eden, unafraid. So she was just a great teacher. So that was to Doris. Then, you know, I used to work at this all-girls school in Middleburg, Virginia, Foxcroft School. And, you know, I went over to there was a place called Brick House where the administration office was. And I forget what I was doing over there. I think I was looking for something. I picked up this magazine, and this was the first time I ever heard of Alzheimer's. And I was so struck by it because I thought, how in the world can you lose everything to this disease? And so I wrote a series of poems about Alzheimer's. And of course, since then, I've known many people, including people in my own family. So this is one called Alzheimer's. Could I give you an anchor? I would. Wait. Something to hold you in a place that digs to the bottom of past, floor of memory. But all is sinking as I grasp for the ring, stalk, shank of your life, something to slip a knot through, to tie you to ancestors. And in this place that is neither here nor there, you are forsaken by days, days that were your own, and years honored in pictures and emblems of love are wind passing through the old woman's thin gray hair till all is life we cannot hold from time's undertow. Still, love is not estrangement, and I will seek you there in the eye of it, the face of earth, the stars, if only for one moment more. So I think we've had a lot of sadness lately, so I kind of don't want to read the sad poems. But if you notice, it's called Broken Like Job. And so basically, I was really fascinated with the fact that we kept getting disaster after disaster after disaster, and we couldn't even process the disaster that had just happened before another one happened. And that's pretty much the story of Job. And so I wanted to call this Broken Like Job because in the end, he had to just fall to his knees and pray. So that's what this book kind of deals with, some of the things that were happening in Haiti, which is really the story of Job to a whole island in many ways, and to many countries actually now. And then, but you know, so I don't want to read the ones that are kind of like disaster because I think we've just been living with it. Do you know what I mean? So I kind of want to, I'm reading the upbeat ones. So I'm going to read one called Noon Signs. And this is the one that I just said I wrote before I ever knew that I was going to teach for the rest of my career. And the way it happened was, I think I told you already. So I imagined a setting and an old Southern town, and a young man approaches an old woman who's sitting on the porch. And there's a huge town celebration going on. And so he asks the woman sitting on a porch, well, what's going on? And she responds by saying, school teacher died. And he says, well, if she died, why are they celebrating? And that's where the poem begins. It's called Noon Signs. She'd always said, Sarah, it's a delicate thing, students passing through hands. And she called us by name when she had something for us to think about. That first day she had candles. She brought one for everyone in that class, made us take one and hold it in front like we was praying. And when it was quiet, she lit her candle and started talking. And she said that each one of us, our minds were candles waiting to be lit, but wouldn't get lit unless we brought our candles to her since we were students with no matches on hand. And she said it was a give and a take, a humbling and giving and a humbling and taking. But once lit, we burn on our own. She loved colors. You could say that's how she saw each student. They were precious. Oh no, not because she got to know their business or their private ways, but special because if she'd been an artist, a painter, they'd have been her paints. Each one a different color, and she was just the brush. When mine were in school, they said it was enough to know 1 + 1 was 2. Learning was basic reasoning and facts. Said it was enough, but mister, you and I, we know this life, it's not reasonable. It's not enough. Not enough at all. So in teaching the facts, she meant to make you wonder. Wonder about the wilderness between failure and hope, spaces. She taught you how to fill in the spaces. Oh, she could give plenty facts, but she'd say, they're slippery things, Sarah. Too many and the mind dries up like unused paints, a world with no texture. And too little fact, and we're diluted and diluted. And it's sad to see minds without a purpose, as if it isn't clear that the mind was meant to expand. We'd be strange boxes otherwise, huh, Sarah? And me, I just nod feeling she knew, but she'd been wondering longer. The day was hot and dry. It was noon and that sun was bright orange against cloudless blue. The night before it rained hard and the passing came late. Still, the service was attended by most of the community, and it was a day for children. They came dressed in different colored dresses and suits, a life come and gone. And a candle was lit and passed around for each one to light his own. And remembering the kind of life she had lived, some folks feeling it was a sign, opened their Bibles to pray. Well, mister, I've been here 43 years. Bell worked like a master. Sarah, she'd say, it's a delicate thing, students passing through hands. Such a slippery thing. So that got me graduated from Howard University, may I just say. It was like, because that was like, if you don't do a good poem, you're in trouble. So anyway, that was the dare. Okay, so that's where I began, and then I started being really concerned about the world and many things, but I think I'm going to read this one called Seedling Remembrance. And that's it. I was fascinated by seeds, how seeds become trees and blossoms. And from this little mustard seed, I think it was probably from the New Testament that I first got that notion of the wonder of something having to die in order for something bigger to grow. So it's called Seedling Remembrance. In the seed, a universe is with us. Whole, where watchers find the tree, blossom, or leaf, divinity of hyacinth or rose. And we shall be as leaves upon the tree whose roots are to earth deeply married, whose branches in all kinds of weather free reach towards sky. And when the falling time comes, we shall not weep for things unbound. Winds, more tender than the breezes of love's boasting, have freed us. Mastered by love, we become another season's flaming colors, and move on toward long-lasting fields covered in myrtle and favored by the gods. And I think I want to go to the newer ones because I don't want to go over my time. I'm really eager to hear Miss Cayenne's. So I'm just gonna end with this one was actually written. This is a new one. It's not finished at all. This was written in April when the pandemic first happened, and I was thinking of a dear friend who is also a published poet in Word Works, and her name is Nan Fry. And she wrote a book called Relearning the Dark. And so I thought, aren't we all doing that right now? So this is kind of for Nan Fry, and it's not finished in any way, but this is what just came out. So it's a letter to Nan. Dear Nan, as children, we feared the darkness, straining our eyes, looking for something, praying, hoping nothing was lurking in corners or peering through darkened windows, listening, toes curled, listening so intently for sound we could hear stillness, our hearts beating, and every living thing seemed to stop. It was like a child alone in a forest, and now here we are in daylight, fearing the masked people we see. And we try to move safely past them, past this moment, past other eyes, straining to see how to live, learning to live lives differently, and time once more has stopped. We watch, noting down minutes, hours, till days and nights blend together. And though time has not changed, just the way we keep it. And from my window, I now notice everything, leaves rustling, cats crying, legs on solitary walks, the way water falls over rocks and the slow blooming of flowers in quiet parks, places once peopled with sound, now just birds, so many morning birds singing, chirping, bird talk. I really wish I knew what they were saying. I go shopping, birds fly past me. I am their ghost, unseen, haunting their bird worlds. So all is the forest now. This street, city, nation, world, all trying to reopen, as if waking from an ominous deep, punctuated by reports of rising numbers, human waves on dry shores, and the secrets of these woods undisclosed. A darkened world waiting, wanting, wishing light, longing for the whippoorwill's cry, the limpid lake, the fire's glow, and life's delights. Oh, Nan, you knew how to listen carefully, intently, loving silence, stillness, and movement in all created things. And perhaps if we had heard, really heard you, it would not be so difficult or scary, but joyful and reverent. For now we are all relearning the dark. So that was, it's still, it needs work, but it was for her, and I just thought I miss her so much. I'll end with a poem called Prefiguring the World, and again, it was about thinking about the times that we're in and how we need unity more than ever. And so here it is. Where all the broken things of earth were sent to the bottom of the sea, now they float and drift where they were not meant to be. The knee on a neck, somber blues, carrion trees, unnatural fruits, or women who want to voice their choice, and the child who washes up on lands he hoped to choose, simply a trail of tears. Our past carries shadows longer than memory, a history of movement and stillness, and to idle fancies, we give certitude. Crisp shadows is what we have chosen to forget, and yet prefiguring the world is something other than a poem. Actually forming the world in imagination, combining power and grace, and at the center, a thing that is not there yet, except in language, in words as guidance, as good sense and vibrant living, brewing surprise like moonlight on a river, and advice given from elders, complicated, difficult, but organized. Wisdom foretold and retold in the holy books of old until this incomparable and wondrous tablet, until life itself is remolded for all to build, embrace life that could be, after all this time, ours. Thank you very, very much.
Okay, everybody, let's shake our hands and make our visual applause there for Donna Denizet. A wonderful round of poems from her. And I will put into the chat again our links so that you can purchase the poet's books and donate too if you want to the WordWorks. You can do it all on those pages. Next, I have one of the great pleasures of doing this series is I get to see all different kinds of and we put on an October program with the Right Blend, and it was an astounding show, and Miss Cayenne came into that and just blew me away. And I thought to myself, boy, next time I get a slot in PvP, I am going to fill it and make sure that this talent doesn't disappear from our poetry stage. So here she is. Let me introduce her. She is an author, a performer, a facilitator, and an entrepreneur. Miss Cayenne has been honored as the Poetry Society's Who's Who in Poetry. She is currently the administrator of a Facebook group called Poets, Writers, and Creative Scribblers, where she creates a virtual space for creatives to imagine, write, and connect. She is the author of 2 chapbooks, Think on These Things and Syncopated Hearts. She is also the co-author of The Right Blend, a collaborative collection by the eponymous troupe of poets that we featured on PvP back in October. In case you missed it, you can watch this program on our website archive. And it was her performance that just blew me away, as I just said, and gives me so much pleasure to bring her back to the PvP stage. Welcome, Miss Cayenne.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I feel so special. Henry, I want to say thank you for the invitation. I'm honored. And this platform I was looking through, you have it's a large crowd tonight. And so that speaks to your ability to gather and continue to allow the power of words to live, even in the middle of a pandemic, right? So I'm grateful to you, Henry, and your work, to the poets that have gone before me. Wow, wow, and more wow. I've enjoyed all that I've heard tonight, and again, just honored to be here. As Henry stated, I am Miss Cayenne, I'm a poet, and I know it. And I'm happy to read a few poems. I don't know if I have as many as Donna, but I definitely will share. I'm going to read. Some of you may have been present at the October event, and it may be a bit duplicative. I will read a few poems from the book, The Right Blend, W-R-I-T-E, The Right Blend, which I am a member of a group called The Right Blend. We are a diverse group of poets, and we've put together our own collection called The Right Blend. And I believe in the link that Henry has provided. If you're interested, you can purchase the book on Amazon. I'm going to read a poem or 2 poems from this book. The first one is called Train Power. Train Power, T-R-A-N-E, power, as in Coltrane. Her body writhed like a snake, controlled by train's rhythmic power. Every note transcended the previous, and her flesh was possessed with jazz. Syncopation was her Holy Ghost, and her feet spoke in tongues. Arms flapping so powerfully, she created the wind she soared upon. There was no shame in her movement, no fear of expectation or rattling chains, just freedom. Thank you. I have to say, this is quite an adjustment as a spoken word artist. We're used to hearing things, so I appreciate the smiles. The next piece is called There is Blood on the Cotton. As Henry mentioned, I am, and I mentioned as well, I'm a member of a group called The Right Blend. And we come together. We're 6 poets, and we come together, and sometimes we have writing prompts. And we may just have a theme, or not even a prompt, really just a theme or a word or a concept, and we'll write. And we're very different in our approach to the writing process, or even our topics or things that inspire us. And this is from the chapter, I believe, Blending Colors in the Right Blend. There are several chapters, and they're all about different blendings. And this poem comes from the chapter in the book, Blending Colors. The word was colors, and that's what we were given to just write or create. And this is what I wrote. There is blood on the cotton, snowy white and neatly folded. Rows of teas stand at attention in the dresser, each one whispering, "Pick me." Eyes as eyes scan across the open drawer. Textile perfection, almost, until the nick on his chin drips and there is blood on the cotton. And like that, the fabric of our lives is the fabric and fiber of our anguish. Rows of cloud-like purity stained with the blood of human chattel. King Cotton ruled with a leather whip. The economic backbone broke down many black bones, making bank bones, but only for the bones covered in white skin. Men, women, and children bow in reverence to a hot sun and a cold king, racing against daylight, ignoring the screams of their worn bodies, backs bent, hands pick, fingers pricked, blood drips, and there is blood on the cotton. Camera flash forward. Snowy white teas still stand at attention, perfection lost with one single drop, a shore castaway. With ancestral courage, his shaky mulatto hands reached in the opened drawer and rescued himself. And under Ralph, Givenchy, and Armani, a subtle reminder that there is blood on the cotton. So I have another chapbook. I need to redistribute it and redo it, but I still love the pieces here in this poem and in this collection. I believe it was around 2013, not around, in 2013, my grandmother passed. And like many people, my grandmother was my rock. Actually, she raised me. And so it was a hard time. Very hard time. So the first chapter or first section of this book, or this chapbook called Syncopated Hearts, is dedicated to her, and it's called Grieving Grandma. There's a piece in that section called That Table, and I'm going to read it in dedication to my grandmother, and also in dedication to ones that we may have lost along the way. That table. Boston Market catered my turkey day this year. Though grateful for the $22.41 needed to purchase this hasty meal, I was saddened that it was not prepared by her hands, served from her dishes, consumed at her table. In fact, that table is gone. Loaded on a truck with careless quickness. That table used to hold meals prepared in love. That table used to shelter the dogs from scolding tones. That table held mail sent to me years after I had moved away. That table now sits in a Goodwill with unfamiliar pieces of furniture, questioning what it did to deserve this relocation, this transition from a warm, purpose-filled home to a cold warehouse floor. That table hid my dangling feet during long prayers for traveling mercies before driving back to college. That table served as a church and office where sermons were prepared and community prayer meetings were held. That table endured the pressure of the pen, from letters written to local officials, congressmen, and other entities of power, demanding that a wrong be made right. That table, covered with cloth and plastic, upheld hundreds of candles during countless birthday celebrations. That table hosted a family's last supper before its matriarch pushed away from it for the last time. That table absorbed the fragrance of her spirit early that Sunday morning when it left her body, floating from her bedroom to the cumulus clouds of heaven. That table, though nameless, held everything in its wooden DNA: resilience, tenacity, dedication, and second chances, faith, and agape. That table held me up when my balance was challenged. That table never changed despite life's duplicity. So in whatever bleak warehouse corner that table now stands, the effulgent truth is that its life was well lived. That table, that table. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Another piece I would like to share is a piece that is actually extremely old. It's one of my older pieces. Probably, it's not the first thing I've written, but it's probably one of the first pieces I wrote as a spoken word artist, where I began to really perform the poetry. You know, I started off writing. Writing is very important to me. I literally say that it saved my life. I had so many things growing up, a lot of loss early in the game. I lost my mother, I didn't have my father, I lost my brother. And so early in the game, very young, probably before the age of 12, I had lost pretty much all of the core people in my life. And writing became a saving grace for me. So it was my secret thing, my diary, my journal, my own thing for me. And then one day it shifted and it became something where I was compelled to share, because as it healed me, I understood and learned that it could heal others. And so this piece I like to call a signature piece, not because it's the greatest piece, but because it's probably in the beginnings of me standing before crowds to share my personal poetry. So it's called Go Ahead. Actually, Go Ahead is what it's called. And it's actually a medley of pieces, about 3 different poems that I kind of strung together to create this one piece. Go ahead, black boy, black girl, you go ahead. Fly, fly. You can make it. Just continue to try. Go ahead, black boy, black girl, you go on ahead. Don't let them break your wings as you aim for those brass rings. Go ahead, black boy, black girl, you go on ahead now. Reach, stretch, seize. That's how you make dreams tangible things, and keep your head up with your eyes fixed on hope and your heart chained to faith. Keep your head up. Keep your head up. Never concede to your spirit being cast down. Always agree with second chances, because they only birth more second chances. Keep your head up. Keep your head up. As you remember daily your weaknesses, remember daily his strength. They go hand in hand. Keep your head up. Keep your head up and don't be afraid. Never be afraid of the growling voices in your own mind that tell you you can't. Know that you can because, well, God says you can. Don't be afraid. Never quiver at the sight of past hindrances and obstacles because they have become weightless history. Don't be afraid. Speak to the mountain, watch it crumble before you. Don't be afraid. Keep your head up and go ahead, black boy, black girl. You going ahead now. Reach, stretch, seize. Make your dreams tangible things. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh, I love that piece. And although it does seem to speak to a particular little boy and little girl, I think we all can relate, right? To be encouraged to do it. Nike says it, I'm saying it. Just do it. Don't be afraid. Keep your head up. So another piece I like to do is just an encouragement piece. But before I go there, back to my chapbook called Syncopated Hearts. I like to tell stories. I'm a people person, a people watcher, right? A people watcher. And used to get me in trouble in church. I people watch and come home and do my impersonations. But I'm a people watcher, and consequently, it kind of can translate into a poem or something of that nature. And this is an older piece called I Saw a Black Man Cry Today. I literally was sitting on a train one day and people watching by default, you know, people are there. I have eyes and so I can see. And I saw something this day and it moved me to write about it. I saw a Black man cry today. It was a peculiar sight to see. It nearly frightened me. Were my eyes deceiving me? Was this Black man really crying right in front of me? I saw a Black man cry today. It was in the strangest place, sitting on a train in a public place. His tears fell down his face. It was so real to me. His pain I could taste. I saw a Black man cry today with tats on his skin and cornrows in his hair, with a wife beater tank and the smell of smoke in the air. This Black man cried as his soul he bared, even if it was just to me, the onlooker who stared. I saw a Black man cry today. I don't know exactly why he cried. Maybe it had something to do with the little boy by his side. Maybe somebody died, or maybe, just maybe, it was a leak from the inside. I saw a Black man cry today. I could only imagine what was going on in his head. Perhaps he realized that his potential had gone unfed. Perhaps he thought to himself, my dreams are dead. Then he heard the voice of his son's eyes that said, you're my hero, Daddy. Don't give up. Not just yet. I saw a Black man cry today. I wonder what could cause this free expression of emotion. I wonder what could inspire this watery potion. Perhaps it was a bloody surrender to his frustration. Perhaps it was a response to his societal annihilation, or maybe, just maybe, he was appreciating his emancipation. I saw a Black man cry today. He smiled at his son and he hung his head low. Maybe he wept for fathers like him who loved their sons so, for fathers like him who loved their sons so, but didn't know how to say so. I saw this Black man cry today. I can only creatively conjure a reason for this occasion. I can only speculate the specifics of this sad situation. I can only pray a prayer for my proud Black male population. Thus, the following words and dedication To my brothers of the darker pigmentation, I pray that you will rise up and defy the societal annihilation, that you will convert frustration into imagination, that your constructive imagination will drive your internal emancipation. And to my brothers of colors, don't just wish to be taller, hoping to be a baller. Don't be driven by the mighty dollar, but rather reach down in your quiet place and holler. Call forth your mandingo power. This is your time. This is your hour. To the brother I saw crying on the train today, and to the brothers who will live to cry yet another day, I acknowledge your tears. I empathize with your fears. I know that all isn't always what it appears, but this I do know, that your freedom is here. Your freedom, it's here, right here in this poetic prize. Your freedom is here, right here in the voice of your son's eyes. It's here. Your freedom is here. It's here in the palm of your hands, here in the soles of the feet by which you stand. Your freedom is here, right here. So I say to you, my brothers of colors, rise up and lead. Rise up and follow the godly creed. And though your tears are real, they are real indeed. They are transformed into powerful seed. So even as you cry, Black man, remember your hope to stand. Even as you cry, Black man, remember you are free. And I will end on this note. It's called Dear You. Dear You is a poem. I wrote it, but I feel like it was kind of given to me. I am a woman of faith, and so you'll see this in this poem. My belief in God and my belief in prayer and kind of finding my strength from my faith. And so you'll hear that in this poem. But this poem, like I said, I wrote it, but it's more like it was given to me. Maybe you tell me if you can figure out who the author is. Dear you, you have no idea how strong you are. Your spine is made of flexi steel, agile, shock absorbing, never broken. I have never spoken of this strength before, not because it doesn't exist, but because you have always closed the door to this belief. Your reality laden with grief, blinded by the insanity that your humanity was vanity. Life seemed to serve you up on styrofoam plates, plastic cutlery and warmed over leftovers. Fine china seemed imaginary. But what good is a fancy bowl if the contents is old? You have no idea how strong you are, how bold you are, how unlikely to fold you are. And while others drop and break like those china plates, you bend and lean. And if at first you don't succeed, you try again, stand up again, and hope again. Your strength is strong, like God's light on a Sunday morning. Incredibly, you keep rising like God's light on a Sunday morning. You have no idea how strong you are. Your legs are made of titanium, bionic like an alien, corrosion resistant, fully competent to stand, even when you don't understand. Don't you get it? I'm your biggest fan, not in an infatuated kind of way, but in an everything I made was good kind of way. See, it pains me every time you question your tenacity, because with every question, the audacity of your doubt renails me to a cross of limitation. When will you walk out the liberation that I bled out for you in my crucifixion? When will you wear the victory that I gave you in my resurrection? When will you learn? See, I'm a mathematician. Your weakness plus my strength equals perfection. Stop saying you can't do the math, because I'm the teacher, the tutor, and the equation. All you need, you have, if you would just grasp. Instead of bowing in obeisance to social media's meritocracy, better yet, bend your knee at Calvary. Did you know that your spirit is irrepressible and your winds are non-refundable? Has anyone ever told you that your heart is made of unbreakable feathers? And though it weathers nearly unbearable measures, it keeps thumping and pumping and beating the charges held against it. I know that what I'm saying is true, because baby, I made you. I made you with imported metal from the invisible kettle that the Big Dipper rested on. I made you with the periodic table's finest, creating elements just for you, defying gravity and nature too. So when I say that your strength is strong, don't dismiss me and tell me I'm wrong, but rather yet stand up in this truth and say it with me. Say it with me. Type it in the comments with me. I am strong. I am strong. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Whoa, whoa. You bring such energy. I think my computer was going to get fried by if you. It was very, very powerful. Let's see if we can unmute all of the other poets, the other two, and just bring them in. I want to ask one simple question. We're actually running a bit long tonight, but I want to ask all three of you. You three of you are women poets of loss, and you take loss from three different directions. I just want to know a little bit about how you came to that, to become poets of loss. And we'll start with Betsy.
Well, gosh, pretty obvious for me because I was having a perfectly normal life, and my husband went on a business trip at 63 years old and never came back. And I was a writer, but I was not a poet, as you heard in my last poem, my new poem. But I just knew that I had to do something different than I had normally been doing with my writing. And so the poetry came, and I was surprised when David wrote that I was a poet of lament. I thought, gosh, everybody says, wow, you're so upbeat, Betsy, and you're so just always happy. And how is it possible that you write such sad stuff? Well, life is sad, but you know, you come through it. I feel like we've all, three of us have come through so much and so much loss, and loss is part of the fabric of life. And we just have to learn to deal with it, to love it, make something glorious out of it. And I think you said, Miss Cayenne, about really helping other people with it, because nobody's going to get out of this life without a lot of loss. And so I just feel grateful that I have this gift that I can use. And I think we all are very grateful for the ability to express loss in a profound and upbeat way.
Yeah.
So, thank you all for listening and for being here.
I'm a Denise. You had a line in your poem that I believe was, I was born to lose my body. And tell me how you became to that understanding, that kind of existential loss.
I just felt, I guess I was thinking about all the different things that we're here for just a short time. It feels like we're contingent, and everything is contingent. And so what are we meant to do? And I think the way, you know, I love Betsy's poem about don't say it was meant to be, don't, and that's such a beautiful way of kind of like not addressing loss in a way that allows us to really feel it. I guess I was just thinking at the time, like I was losing her and she was dying of cancer. And I felt like, you know, we're all going that way. you know, so it felt that way. And I have to say, I was brought almost to tears by both of my fellow poets tonight. I was breathless with Cayenne's poem about the table. You know, I mean, like that is my family. I mean, you know, and the other one was There's Blood on the Cotton. It just left me. So I need those poems. Basically, I gotta say I buy your book. It was just beautiful. So I'll stop so you can go. All right. So
Certainly. Yeah, definitely. As I mentioned earlier, not that it was intentional, as Betsy said. No, I think no one intends to kind of lead with loss. And it has been, unfortunately for me, something that I've had to work through, particularly since at a very young age, I began to experience intense loss. And people as one, but I've moved around a lot. So places of comfort. So I become what I've described in times past, being well acquainted with grief and loss. Coming from, as an African-American woman and from an African-American family, there are cultural things that come along with loss. And one of them is you got to keep trucking. You got to keep moving. And I remember very early in the game, I remember losing my mother and going to school the next day, right? Things like that. And so, and being raised by a grandmother who loved me dearly, but also lost her daughter. So she's she's processing. And from a different generation where you really got to keep trucking. We don't go and sit on couches and share our deepest, most inner thoughts. So we have to figure it out. And for me, it could have been trouble. I was definitely on the verge of becoming a statistic in a lot of ways, because a lot of things that, you know, kind of speak to statistics around at-risk youth, I had those things. But poetry and writing and expression was the way that I could express that loss, express the feelings, because, you know, you go through a grieving process and one of them is anger. I mean, you go through all of those stages. And as a kid, where you're not necessarily allowed to express or be out of turn, I needed a space, and poetry was my space.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, all three of you. What an emotional and moving night. Let's all wave into our screens here for our poets tonight. And
Awesome.
what a way to wind up Poets versus the Pandemic 2020. We'll be back in the next year. So come back in the new year on January 4, 2021, when Cafe Muse Online will feature poets Don Colburn and Leslie Wheeler. And we'll be back here with PVP on January 20, 2021. Boy, that's difficult to say. With our feature poet, Anne Harding Woodward, who will be reading from her book, Trouble. And so we'll be looking for trouble in the new year. Thank you all for coming. And stay safe.